Hello class, welcome to another week of web development using PHP. Hello class, welcome to another week of development using PHP. Here are the learning outcomes. At the end of this lecture, students should be able to explain the syntax, tags, statements, white space, comments, and simple statements in PHP. 2. Students should be able to explain how to declare variables and constants. 3. Explain operators and how to use them in web applications. And explain the use of operators. Explain how to form conditional statement using if and if else conditions. Now, before we delve in, first we need to understand the basic PHP syntax. 1. In PHP, for every opening tag must have a closing tag, and to do that, the first is to first open the tag with a question mark followed by the term PHP, and to close it, that syntax tag is going to be at same way, but the question mark comes before the closing tag. So in some cases, let me use it in a simpler terms, we use the less than sign to open, followed by a question mark, then the word PHP. To close, the question mark comes, then followed by the greater than sign. The second syntax is that statements must end or end with a semicolon. So for every statement, at the end of each statement in PHP, there must be a semicolon. 3. White space are ignored by PHP parser. So if you, while typing, you press space bar and you continue typing, let's say you press space bar 3 or 4 times or once, depending on how many times you did it, the PHP will ignore that. The PHP parser will ignore that. So, and to make comments in PHP, you make use of double stroke or one stroke star for opening tag, star, then followed by closing tag. So these are the basic syntax of PHP. For every code written in PHP, this particular syntax must be obeyed. And you should know that a syntax or program syntax are rules governing that particular programming language. Now, in our next slide, let's now look at how to embed PHP in HTML code. Now, to embed PHP code within HTML, we use the opening tag as our first syntax. And looking at this example that we have, you can see that this is just a basic structure of a HTML code. And if you look at this point, this particular point at the body tag is where we placed in our PHP code, where we call it. After the body tag, we open the opening tag followed by a question mark, PHP echo hello, comma, world, exclamation mark, closing the quote, semicolon, then we close the PHP. So this is how you do, you embed a PHP code into an HTML code. Now, let's now look at another example of common built-in functions in PHP. So the common built-in functions, echo to print is it output text. Similarly, print output text. Whenever you want to output a text, say you want to print hello world, you use echo as a built-in function. Similarly, you can also use print. So to return the length of a string, you use string length, which is represented or short form as strlen. That's the function. Count is to count element within an array. So these are some of the examples of common built-in functions in PHP. Now, let's now look at variables and constants in PHP. Now, we all know that variable is just a memory location, a space that is allocated for its particular usage or for usage. So, to declare a variable in PHP, the first convention is you must declare it with a $sign. You must what? Declare with a $sign. Say I want to declare a variable sum of two sum. I'll first come up with a $sign, then followed by what? The name. Similarly, dynamic typing is also a supported step in variable declaration. Similarly, to declare constant, we define constant using the define function. Like for example, to our normal pi in our conventional, in our mathematics and our elementary classes, we know pi to be equal to 3.14 blah blah to the end of the number. So to declare pi as a constant, we first use the define function. Define, open bracket, the name of the constant, sorry, open bracket, first quote, opening quote, name of the constant, close quote, comma, then the value of that particular constant. So as you can see right here, we use this define function here. We brought it here to define pi. So anywhere pi is called upon within the code, the compiler already knows that pi is defined and it is a constant within the program. All right, now that we know the meaning of variable and how to declare variables, also we forge ahead, we now know how to declare constants. Let's now forge ahead to look at PHP super global. These are some of they are also in form of predefined variables in PHP. Now, these are some of the examples of PHP super global, which are the examples of variables predefined in PHP. You can see the naming convention again, like we stated, to declare a variable, first we must start with a $sign. So if you look through all these variables, each variable begins with a $sign. And underscore too is also part of the naming convention. Hopefully, we are going to treat more on naming convention in future. So, $sign underscore get, it is a predefined which is used to fetch information from forms. Post is used to fetch forms, data from forms to the server. This is used to call on the server, while this look at the sessions, $_ session, while talk about the session in a server or within the lifetime of a program or access to a particular page or resources. While cookie is talking about cookies, handling of cookies, which are just snippets within a code. While the files, talking about the documents or files or information within the program. So it is advisable or recommended for students to go and look at the individual meanings of these predefined variables for further understanding. Now, let's now look at what are the process on how, since we've gained some little knowledge on variable declarations, now we can declare variables, be it string and other types. Although we've not discussed the types, but we can see that we can declare variables and we've seen the functions to print. Let's now see how to run a PHP program. Now, first, you save the file with PHP with .php extension. So for any program to be recognized by a PHP compiler, the program must be saved with .php extension. Similarly, we're going to run within a web server. In our last week class, we've discussed about servers. The XAMPP, the Apache, the WAMP, the LAMP, the MAMP, all those are examples of server. So looking at here, I just made an example with XAMPP and Apache or CLI. So in this case, like I said in this class, we're going to use XAMPP throughout the lifetime of this to run this code. So for example, PHP file name.php, this is a good naming convention of saving a PHP program. So this is an example. You can say my code.php, nd2.php, hnd1.php, hnd2.php. All these are good naming convention, but it must come with this .php, which is the extension of a PHP program. Now, let's look at some common ways to fix errors or to identify errors and then possibly fix them before we forge ahead. Now, common errors while writing PHP program is people tend to miss the semicolons or forget the semicolons. And you know that it is compulsory from the rules of PHP or the basic syntax that at the end of each statement, the end of a complete statement, a semicolon must be there. And this semicolon tells the compiler or interpreter that this is the end of these statements. Another common error is the mismatch braces, where one will mistakenly curly bracket with a normal bracket or square bracket with the curly bracket. So, and another thing is undefined variables. During coding, one will tend to forget to define a variable at some point, and this will generate syntax error. So, what are the debugging tips? Now, there's a function within PHP that is used to identify of to as a debugging tip within, which is error underscore reporting function. This function can be used to check error, to give you error report of the entire code. Similarly, there is also another check syntax where, where you can check the syntax of each line or statement. Now, we've done some preamble on the PHP thing, PHP as a programming language. We've seen the naming convention. We've seen how to declare variable, how to print out document, and so on and so forth. Now, we want to forge ahead to discuss operators. Operators in PHP are as follows. We have the arithmetic operators, we have the comparison operators, and we have logical operators and bitwise operators. Now, arithmetic operations deals with arithmetic calculations and manipulation. This includes addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentage. These arithmetic operations performs operation on two or more variables. For example, x plus y equals z, 2 plus 1 equals 3, x plus y plus z plus n. Similarly, it's applicable to all other operators within this domain of arithmetics. So comparison operators are also used for, just like the name implies, they're used for comparison, comparing two or more variables. For example, this double equal to represent equivalency, where we used to check if x equals 1, y equals 1, we can use it to check if x equals 1 is true. We can check that condition. Similarly, this one is not equal to, this one is less than, while this is greater than. This is not equal to, less than, and greater than. So all these can be used to compare two variables. Can use to check, even group. It can also be used to even check if a statement is valid. It can also use to check validity of statements, operations, or calculations. Even results, we can compare them to. So now the logical operators are operators with conditions. That if a condition, like the first one is the AND operator. The AND operator is true if all the conditions are true, while the OR operator is true if one of the operations is true, while the NOT operator becomes valid if the value is not as same as the variable. So these are logical operators. I will leave a link for you students. I advise you to visit that link to read more on operators in PHP. These are some examples I picked for the discussion of this class, but we have a bunch of them that you can go and read more. So similarly, look at there is called a bitwise operator. So you can also go and read about these bitwise operators. That will help you do more. This will prepare you. So you take this as an assignment because I'll prepare a quiz on bitwise operators. I want to get your understanding on this. What do you think about bitwise operators? I've explained the three. I want you to go study on bitwise operators, and we discuss this in our next class. So, okay, in the previous slide, we've discussed about the equality, equivalency, whatever. So there is a need in PHP for us to differentiate between equality and identity operators. When you see these two, it checks if the equality sign with double equal to checks value equality, which I made an example. If x equals 1 and y equals 1, we can use the equality or equivalency to check if the truth of the statement, whether it's true. While identity operators checks value and type quality. For example, if x equals 2 and y equals 2.1, the identity checks whether x is an integer or a double variable. Similarly, it does the same for y equals 2.1 to check whether it is a decimal or an integer number. Please, these are the differences. The other checks if they are equal, while the later checks if it checks the value as well as the type. So these relational operators, I think we've discussed about them, where we talk about the less than, the greater than, the equal to, and the not equal to. And we know that a relational operator is a symbol used to compare values in computer programs. So this can be used to compare them. just to compare the result. No, is x less than y or greater than y? Is x equals to 1 or 2? These are what we call relational operators. Now, let's talk about the logical operators. Logical operators are symbols or words that compare values and produce a result based on whether the values are true or false. Example of logical operators are one, and. And operator combines two or more expressions into one. And earlier on, we've discussed it in the context of digital electronics, where we said for an operator to be true, all conditions must be true. But in the context of programming, it only integrates two or more expressions into one. Say 2 times 1 will give you 2, 3 times 2 will give you 6, and so on and so forth. While the other operator does the same function but in a different manner, it combines two or more expressions into one. Say 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5. So in this context, most people take and as a multiplication or as addition sign. So in most cases, that's how they are treated. So the not operator inverts the value of a single expression. So let's say x equals 1, the inverse of x equals 1 can be 0. So the same thing with exclusive operator, exclusive or is also a logical operator that converts two or more expressions based on this condition. So as I told you earlier on, study all these kind of operators to know more about them. So this is an example that combines the logical operators as well as relational operators. If variable a is greater than 0 and variable b is greater than 0, echo both are positive. What this example does is it compares the value. If a greater than 0, yes, and b greater than 0, yes, then print both are positive. So what happens there is if those conditions are true, then both are positive will be the outcome of this course. So hence, this example brings us to the end of this class. And don't forget, I've given an assignment to study on bitwise operators, to also go and know all these exclusive ORs and how they are related examples. So outside that too, I've prepared some quizzes for you. These quizzes consist of 4 questions that you go study them and see how you can respond to them. These are purely questions based on what we have discussed, and it is for your understanding. So at this point, I bid you farewell. Bye-bye.